Good morning, everybody. We're doing another self-driving video on v14.3.5. I had a quick look online, and currently in the US, they're on the v14.3.6, whereas Australia, as I mentioned in the last video and the video before that, we are on 14.3.5. So just a point version away from the latest. What does that mean? This is pretty much the closest I think the closest that we've been to the US release for FSD. Previously, before we were roughly around about one or two versions behind, but with Tesla at the moment, I think what they're trying to do is trying to make sure that all the software and firmware is all roughly pretty close to each other. So that's why we're even seeing the older hardware 3/legacy cars using V14 Lite on very similar software versions. So today we are going to drive we're going to drive through just let these pedestrians pass. So today we're going to drive through to a recycling center up north, I apologize, I can't really say this, Ku-ring-gai. I think that's how you say it. It's an indigenous word, so it's a little bit hard to say, but it's a clean away up north in the Hornsby area. There's a couple of ways that we can go there, but for the intent of the video, we're going to skip the North Connects. Maybe we'll take it on the way back, but we'll skip the North Connects and we'll go through, showing the map, pretty much down Pennant Hills Road and hop onto the M1 for a stop. Then we'll go to the recycling center, and then from there we'll head on down to probably around the Woy Woy bridge, just to test out the 110k zone, and then loop back and then hit the North Connects. So I think that'll be a pretty good loop. At the moment, just to get out to the recycling center, it's reading at around about 26 minutes, not using the freeway. And so this will probably be a longer video, so feel free to skip ahead. But at the moment, I've used, that was interesting. People don't know how to keep lanes here sometimes. They are pretty tight roads, but there's some people who just don't know how to keep a lane, especially when they're turning. But I've noticed that FSD handles that pretty well most of the time. From an FSD stats, does that come up at the moment? There we go, self-driving. That's what we're trying to look for. So since I've upgraded to the version 14 FSD software, 93% of my driving has been on self-drive, which has been pretty good. And that's what I've been guessing when I was on V13, because I would use self-drive pretty much everywhere except for the small percentages where I'd have to take over, or FSD was just struggling, that you can kind of tell. So basically V14 has logged around about 226 Ks since I got V14, and out of that, basically 93%, or 211 kilometers. Apologies, you can probably convert that over to miles for if you don't know what kilometers is. That's too much math for me today for a Sunday, but that's a pretty significant amount. My longest streak, however, has been 26k. What I've noticed was that whenever I get to a destination, and that the FSD would struggle to find parking, or even this morning where we were taking Ace, our dog, for a walk, FSD, instead of heading to the car park where the map was actually showing, it actually tried to go a different way, and tried to go the really long way, which was a little bit silly. So I actually had to take over and do it like this. Sorry about that. Let's start again. The camera actually fell down and while I was talking. So as I was saying, basically I said in the last video that I wasn't going for streaks or anything like that, and that's still holding true. Even though I've recorded around about 26 Ks as my longest streak, what I'm saying is that I am trying to drive FSD as much as possible, but it's that small 10% where it's pulling up to a car park or basically whatever, just trying to figure out where it's going to stop, and that FSD gets unstuck. Also, there's been a couple of times, like for example in the city, where it would try to merge and there'd be a car there, and then next thing you know, we're probably like, let's say, a couple of 100 meters away from where we want to turn and or whatnot. So I've actually had to take over because it would be so close that the car would be trying to merge into another car, even though the lane alert assists and everything like that were going off. FSD was still trying to change lanes and everything, even though if it slowed down, it could actually do the lane change without causing any issues. So it was doing weird stuff like that. So it just impresses me that there's some people who's gotten, like, let's say, a few 100 Ks out of FSD as a streak, which I'm not too sure how they're doing, but maybe they're doing some weird workarounds or whatnot, or they're just driving long distances all the time, and that's how they're getting a long streak. But at the moment, the long streak that I have is 26 Ks, and that's been the pretty much the average that I've had. I haven't had anything longer than that, obviously, as it shows. So let's continue driving. So the reason for my drive today is that I need to drop off some boxes. I might change lanes because this guy's driving slower. Drop off some boxes at the recycling center. My recycling pile for boxes at home was getting pretty large, and where the car's parked, it was making it difficult to actually hop into the car. So I had to get rid of my little box fort pile, as I call it. Yeah, so my time with FSD. So since the last video, I think the last video covered off the second time I actually drove on FSD, which was driving it to work in peak hour traffic. Since then, I've driven it from work, I've driven it into town or whatnot. I haven't really recorded it or anything like that. This is probably the first time since I've started recording FSD, and I think from my feedback for the past couple of days of just driving on FSD is that I still stand by what I said the other day. It feels like it's gone one step forward, two steps back in some instances, whereby there's, I wouldn't say they're bugs, but there's just really some quirks that have popped up that I think that if we do get onto the 0.6 may resolve some of them, not all, but there are some quirks that have popped up which weren't in version 13, and yeah, it's just not great. Like, for example, there would be times whereby it would be approaching an intersection and it looks clear, but I can tell that it's not clear, and the car is slowing down, and sometimes instead of coming to a complete stop because it detected a car, it would do kind of a bit of like a double tap brake stab. Like on the first tap it just slow down immediately, and then quickly let off the brake and then actually slow down on second, which is a little bit weird and really noticeable, and that's something that's happened. But look, don't get me wrong, I was on enhanced autopilot on hardware 3 for quite some time, so one of the things I hated on that was that was also brake stabbing, but not to that extent, where it would just be like, for example, now we'd be driving down this stretch of road and there'd be nothing in front of us, and it would just basically just put on the brakes for no apparent reason. I think that got really, really common when I was driving from Melbourne to Sydney. Okay, Camry drivers, standard behaviour. Yeah, it was just really apparent when I was driving from Melbourne to Sydney on the Hume Highway, where it would just brake stab in random places, to the point where every K where there'd be like a bit of a turn off for, which wasn't an actual free motorway highway turn off, it's just be an intersection, but it's still like 110k zone. The car would just brake stab for no reason, and if I decided to do a lane change, since it was enhanced autopilot, sometimes it would just try to throw me off the road. But that was enhanced autopilot. I haven't used it since then, but and I haven't really experienced it on version 13. So yeah, so I think now I'm like on two versions of full self-drive in the last probably six no, I'd even say more, the last 12 months of owning a Tesla. So yeah, it's been really interesting and seeing how it's evolved. But yeah, why did we go this route instead of the North Connects? So there's actually more stoplights, and you can see that there's more traffic. I wanted to see on video how it would handle that. I actually haven't driven down Pennant Hills Road since for quite some time. So technically this is the first time v14 has driven down here. Also, if you can see on camera that the other side of the road is pretty busy. That's the reason why I don't want to drive back on this road later on. Okay. So yeah, also, this is Thornley. So what I didn't realize, I think there's a training center for McDonald's here, and also I think the McDonald's here they actually use as the training center for New South Wales McDonald's. So you know, that's pretty cool. It's always busy, suffice to say, and also previous car clubs I've been in, this has been a meet point, especially for I'm still in the Super Club, but with the Super guys in New South Wales, they would normally use that as a meet point before heading up north, or even out to, like, let's say, for anything that's a long drive around the corner, well, not around the corner, within the area or whatnot, like Dural, that type of thing. Even I think now me and my mates use it as a bit of a meet point before we head up north as well too. So it's a pretty popular area for me personally, but I have seen like motorbike clubs, other car clubs or whatnot use the Thornley Macca's, Thornley Bunnings car parks and areas as a bit of a meet point. So yeah, it's pretty handy. We should be heading on to the M1 in the next couple of minutes. And hopefully we're able to test out one of the things that I'm hoping that has been resolved a little bit, which people have reported. The other thing I've noticed with V14 is that there's this one roundabout close to home where on V13 it felt like 1 out of 4 times, maybe 2 out of 3 times, it would completely just flip out and fail. What I mean by that, it would try to exit on exit number 3 going through the roundabout, but probably after it passed exit 2 and exit 3, when it passed exit 2, but before it would get to exit 3, the car would just stop. So what you'd have to do is basically move on, give the accelerator a nudge just to get it forward. But there have been times when, before I actually moved on to V14, the steering wheel would be going through the turn, but then always at that in-between point between exit 2 and 3, there's one time actually it would actually turn the other way for no apparent reason, and if I pressed the accelerator, I think I would have driven into a house. So I haven't experienced that on that roundabout yet with V14, so it has been pretty good. I have had a couple of issues with roundabouts here and there, like I mentioned this morning when we were going to the dog walk, but it feels like at the moment the handling of roundabouts on V14, especially on 3.5, handles it much better than V13. Now, looking at all the other groups who are using V14 and reporting their usage, they've said that the roundabout handling for them has actually gotten worse. So take my opinion as a grain of salt. I know that Camry driver, obviously, again, same guy. Yeah, take my opinion as a grain of salt. I feel like there's different instances where the version stack is handling roundabouts differently. It might be a different setup or situation, or just maybe just mapping data, but also at the same time I was actually thinking about it, maybe those cars don't actually have the front bumper camera, and I'm not too sure if the software actually uses that as part of the obstacle avoidance, but yeah, just my experience, I feel like that the roundabout handling has gotten better since version 13, especially from the version that I was actually trying when I was test driving the Model YP way back in my first FSD video. So yeah, so that was a long-winded way to say it, and I think I'm a bit yabbering, and I think the reason why I'm yabbering is because I'm trying to also just make sure that I don't have an accident, because this is my first time now heading onto the M1 using this. I have been on the freeway or the motorway, which is the M4. Am I right in saying that? The M4? I think so. But that's the one that heads up to the Blue Mountains. And I've been on that now a few times and haven't had any issues, to the point where I would have it on hurry and the car has followed the speed signs or whatnot. But I actually haven't gone out too far to actually try out, like, you know, past Penrith to try out 110 zones. So this is what I wanted to try out here. So basically from that sign, it looks as though we're about to head into 110 zone. I'm not too sure if we're actually going to hit it in this traffic, because this part of the road does get pretty busy. So it has detected it's 110 zone. So it's currently on hurry. It's accelerating up. There is a car in front of me who is a P player, and I think they're limited to 90 or 100. I'm not too sure. But we'll see how it handles 110. So at the moment it's doing 90. Will it change lanes? I'm not too sure, but I think I would have by now. So it's reading this section of road now at 100, but this is still 110k area. So I'm just giving it a bit of a nudge right now, because there is a car behind me and everyone is going 100. So that's probably why it's thinking that's 100. So okay, now too much. Let's try and keep it at around about 115. Till we overtake the car on the left. And we'll go back. So, still 110. We've just passed 110k's sign, but the car is definitely not reading 110k signs at the moment, which is the issue that they've reported. The thing is, like, on previous versions, you can scroll the wheel to say max speed and everything, but that's actually gone now in v14, and that's been reported in the US, where people have said, hey, can we have this max speed back? So here's another sign. Let's see if it reads it. No, it hasn't read it. So here's another sign of 110. Nope, hasn't read it at all. So it's still thinking that it's 100 zone. So that's a little bit of a concern, that you can't lock it in to the actual speed, because that's the issue that I was mentioning also before, was the fact that if it reads the wrong speed sign, it'll tend to lock itself to that, and it'll think that you're speeding. And really, I think the only way around that is to actually either pump it with the accelerator so that it does go up to set speed, but then you get that warning. So yeah, there's another 110 speed sign. Still hasn't read it. But at least we're getting off here. So I can see that being a bit of a headache on long drives, because you can't lock the car in at the correct speed, especially if it's not reading correct speed sign on the road. And that issue is twofold. So if it doesn't actually read, like, let's say, a construction zone sign correctly, it'll still go through at this previous speed that it could be at. And, at the end of the day, you would be liable for that speed at that point. So if you're going through like a construction zone, which is in Australia, if a construction zone is saying that, yes, this is a 40 zone, and it might have come from, like, let's say 100 or even like an 80k zone or whatnot, and you're still traveling at 80k's, you will be, there is a really good chance that you would lose your license and have a massive fine because you actually went through at 40 kilometers over the prescribed speed limit. So this has been a long request from users to Tesla to be able to lock in your speed, not just speed profiles. And so, yeah, it is a bit of a concern. So if they're going to head down the route, let's say in the next year or so, with unsupervised self-drive, then it's going to be a problem.
In 300 meters, turn right onto Beaumont Road.
Alright, so we're nearly at the destination. I might put it onto the driveway. I'm not too sure what that's going to do. Does it mean that it's just going to drive into the driveway?
Now turn right onto Beaumont Road.
We'll see. I've actually never had that work properly end to end just yet. Maybe other people have, but I haven't had it work properly. Normally I'd have to intervene somehow because it wouldn't find a parking spot or whatnot. Okay, so here we go. We're not too far away from the recycling area.
Now your destination is on the left.
Okay, so it's going to drive in. Oh, it's going to hit a pole. So there we go. This is why I'm not that's why I'm not confident with I'm not saying confident. I am confident with self-drive. I'm just about to say that I'm not too happy with how the streaks are. But yeah, let's I'll just get rid of this rubbish and then we'll continue our conversation. Alright, so dropped off the recycling. We will head on back. Well, sorry, I was saying Woy Woy Bridge. It's actually Mooney Mooney Bridge. Now, the GPS is actually saying to head left, which I don't want it to. I actually want to go back because that's just a weird detour.
Turn left onto Pacific Highway.
And go back to the Pacific Highway. I will brake because there's a car coming. Critical. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so if I just went through there, I think I would have T-boned that that car. So, as I was saying before, I don't think FSD is ready to be unsupervised. There's still like those weird quirks. Yes, they are edge cases, but also at the same time, they are just really concerning at times. So So yeah, so if you are going to use FSD, it definitely is supervised. So just keep watching it. You really, I don't think it's at the point especially in Australia or anywhere outside the US, where you can actually use it and go to sleep and wake up at your destination. It's still a while from that at the moment. It might be mapping data. It just might be how it handles different conditions. But it's definitely not ready for unsupervised driving. And when I say unsupervised, like I said, it's just basically you falling asleep. Because, like I said, a good case is that it's still not reading speed signs correctly. So in this instance there, it did actually read that 60 kilometer an hour zone. So yeah, so we're taking the little windy route back onto the Pacific Highway. This road is actually pretty decent because this is where you would take a bit of a scenic route or a Sunday drive on your motorbike, or even like, let's say, your Model 3 Performance through the nice windy roads out here. So this is also one of those roads that if you ever see like an Australian motoring journo and they're in New South Wales, they would be testing out cars here for various different reasons. So at the moment, let's stick to 60. Now we're going to 80, and the car will accelerate to 80, and we'll stick to the left. At least it's a nice, lovely day for a bit of a drive. We're only 9 minutes away, so that's okay. This is another meet point for various car clubs or whatnot. Actually, if you ever look at Google Maps for the truck stop here, I read that speed sign correctly. You'll probably see one of my photos, and it's a whole bunch of Mustangs parked in that truck stop. Cool. So it's now a 60k an hour zone. It hasn't actually stuck to the speed, so now I'm just going to take it down to 60. This is what I mean, that it actually keeps the speed, even though, like, for example, there it should have, but that's fine. Okay, so here we go. Once we hit 110, go 110. Here we go. This is why I bought the Performance. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Alright, we've got it. We might put it down to standard because I do want it to chill. Now it's reading the speed zones, but for some reason, is it going to stick to 110? Oh, here we go, it is. Or drop back down. So I think the actual issue is that it's just signs that if the map data doesn't have those actual speeds or whatnot, obviously it's governed by the signs. And for some reason, the cameras aren't picking up these speeds, which is a little bit annoying. But yeah, I'm sure that's something that Tesla can fix in an update. But if it's reading at 110, it's actually sticking at 110. So that's pretty good. Now I have a feeling it's going to go to Moody Club. That's not too bad. Cool, so this is another reference to V13. This actual section of road, even though it is 110, it would always really slow down. So it's really nice to actually see it sitting at 115. Okay, let's move it down from hurry mode to standard and what it does. So standard, it actually does drop it down to roughly, to the speed. So the reason why I wanted to test this out was because I am headed up to Brisbane in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be heading down pretty much this road through Newcastle and that. So it was interesting just to do a bit of a small experiment on how the different speed profiles handle each of the speeds. Obviously with the chill mode, it actually really slows down the car below the actual 110 speed, whereas standard keeps it in the range of the actual speed, and obviously hurry mode is slightly faster, so that's okay. We'll probably, on the drive there, we'll probably keep it on standard, just depending on how standard handles the drive. But most of the time I've actually been using hurry, especially around town. But I think maybe I'll just keep it on standard for maybe the remainder of this drive, because it feels like hurry sometimes has really strong urges to do things. So we'll try going to the reserve, because from memory there is parking in there. Yeah, so there's some parking in there, so we'll see. We'll see if it actually parks the car. Because like I said, I haven't actually had it work from point to point.
Now enter the roundabout and take the first exit.
So we're heading into the parking spot now. The good thing about this is that it's actually trying to stay as left as possible, because this is technically a
In
two-way
200 meters,
road,
turn left.
and you don't really want the car to be sitting in the middle, especially when it's a blind corner like that.
Now
Oh,
turn
that's
left.
the other thing. It is detecting most speed bumps, but there are the smaller speed bumps where it actually just struggles and flies over, like that one there. It didn't, but I think because the profile is on standard, so I might actually put it on chill and see where it parks, because also obviously there's people walking around. Maybe sloth would be better, and it can handle the roundabouts a bit better. Oh, still a bit rough, but I'm going
Now
to
your
put that
destination is on the left.
down to oh, here we go. What's it going to do? Interesting. So I do have a disability sticker, but this is probably the first time I've actually seen it park in a disabled area. So that worked. That worked okay. Cool. All right. So we've parked here. Thoughts and feelings? Yes, I think that's probably the first time I've actually seen it park. There's a whole bunch of people around here. All right, we're back onto self-drive, because there's just too many people who did not know how to drive and was trying to figure out parking spaces and everything. All right, so
In 200 meters, enter the roundabout and take the first exit.
we're going to go back. Oof, that's a bit rough. We're going back to Sydney, so we'll see how this routes. There's a couple
Now
of
enter the
roundabouts here,
roundabout and take the first exit.
and hopefully it can figure itself out.
In 200 meters, bear right to stay on Pacific Highway, then turn right to stay on Pacific Highway. Now bear right to stay on Pacific Highway.
Which way are you gonna go?
Now turn right to stay on Pacific Highway.
Okay.
In 200 meters, turn right to take the Pacific Motorway Slip Road. Now turn right to take the Pacific Motorway Slip Road.
All right, now we're heading back to the freeway, which is cool. These lights I've never actually seen work, so yeah, I need to give the accelerator a stab because there's a car behind me. Oh, it's still on sloth mode, that's why. That makes sense. Okay. Back onto standard. Alright, so let's put it on to use the tolls. Jeez, okay. What is wrong with you? that's a good example of some of the driver capabilities there, is that it's 110 zone and they're driving at like 85, 80, which is dumb. Because if you're not confident in traveling these type of roads, what are you doing on these roads? So that's just my 2 cents, but yeah. Alright, so I've programmed it in so that it should be going through the West Connects, and it'll I'm hoping that this will park in the cafe that we parked out on the first night we tested out FSD. So not really end to end, because I was hoping to do an end to end from the I'm just gonna put it on hurry mode because there's too many people driving slow and then the car gets stuck behind them. Yeah, there's just a lot of drivers who have really questionable driving skills at the moment. Yeah, sorry, as I was saying, oh man, truck broke down. Yeah, anyway, as I was saying, I couldn't do the end-to-end parking thing. Also amazing that it handled that truck breakdown like that, which is great. What was I saying? Yeah, end-to-end. The third time I tried to explain it. So yeah, I wanted to do the end-to-end from that parking lot in that park and head down to Daisy's to park the car there, but unfortunately that won't be possible. So quick range check. We're currently at 54% battery. My projected range at the moment, based on my energy usage, is around about 261 kilometers. And how many Ks have I done since charge? 105 Ks. So that's not too bad for 80%. Roughly around about 50 Ks for every, just using mental math here, from 80%. Yeah, that's actually pretty decent. Like, I've only consumed 16%. Am I right in saying that? No, 26%. 26%. And I've done around, what, 107 Ks? Or 18.7 kilowatt hours. So that hasn't been too bad, you know. Dog walk, hanging out in the car, so there's been some energy usage there. For a day-to-day thing, I think electric cars have gotten to the point now where they're really usable. And if you've got normal car users saying that the battery doesn't last or anything like that, I think that, you know, the range on these things now are very comparable. even to the point now where you saw that, you know, the power out of these things are really nice too. Yes, I got the performance, but electric cars, if you need the torque, they're perfect. I might just accelerate here because we seem to be getting stuck. So 21 minutes to go back to the cafe. I'm really interested to see which way it goes. If it goes through North Rocks or through Carlingford. Either way is good, but if we go through Carlingford, it'll be interesting to see how it handles the crazy driver traffic around Carlingford. It is renowned for being busy, if you like to put it that way. Also, that area there has been voted to be one of the worst intersections in New South Wales, possibly even in Australia just recently. Especially the North Rocks and Pennant Hills Road. So, yeah. Kind of like the Razzies Awards for roads, I guess. Yes, I'm impressed at how it's now handling 110k zones. Yes, this is technically, we're still in Sydney or whatnot, but I think that if the map, and this is my earlier point, if the map data is there and also the speed signs are read correctly, then it'll stick to 110. Which is fine. Look, no indicator. Yeah, and that's fine. What you don't want to happen on a long drive is that, yeah, see, these signs don't read because it's not popping up on the display here. How about this one? Does it read? No. I think the reason why it doesn't read is because it's not, I think the system doesn't think it's an actual speed sign, because it looks as though that it can't fold up in half for whatever reason, maybe to reduce the speed, but the speed signs here aren't being read. So having a look at this one, similarly, that's, yeah, there we go, that was shown on the GPS, but a little bit late. So yeah, look, if Tesla can actually tweak that, that would be really, really good, and would probably resolve, I'd say, a good percentage of the issues that people are reporting for the 110k an hour zones. back into standard mode. And
in 2 kilometers, keep left to take M11.
we'll see how that goes. Bit of a yawn. I think the one thing I haven't done is that normally when I think one of the things I've actually started doing while I'm on long road trips and using FSD is that I've actually kind of started reclining back to be a bit more comfortable. Normally I have my seat in a nice upright position that, you know, I've been taught from various track days or whatnot, but I've never been a reclined person, whereas now with FSD it actually makes a bit more sense because you do get to relax a bit more since you aren't doing that hard drive, but also at the same time I think for me there is a risk that I would tend to lose concentration, maybe get a little bit more easily distracted when I get a bit too relaxed. So that's probably just something to watch out for. Just don't get too relaxed when you're doing FSD because, like I said, at the moment it's not 100% there. So yeah. Alright, North Connects Tunnel. Also, one of the things you'll probably hear is a beep. The reason why it's a beep is because it's an electronic tollway, and I'm not too sure if you know, Sydney is one of the, or even New South Wales, I'd probably say, especially when you're in the Sydney surrounds and everything. Sydney's motorways basically have a toll on them. So the closer you are to the city, it's got tolls. And to the point where Sydney is being recognised as one of the most tolled set of roads ever. Now, the funny thing is, you think that, oh yeah, cool, if it's all tolled or whatnot, those roads must be amazing. But truth of the matter is that the roads are still pretty rough or whatnot. It's not as bad as, like, let's say Melbourne, but still not too great. Like you wouldn't be expecting, like, let's say Autobahn's levels of like smoothness or whatever. Also, the speed that they have on said roads and stuff is pretty paltry. Like, you know, this tunnel section is 80 kilometers an hour, where it could technically be around about 90 to 100. So I'm not too sure what the reasoning is there. It's just weird how they measure speed on some of the roads here in Sydney. Yeah, also, since the government here is allowed, here we go, to use speed cameras, they use it as often as they can. So a lot of these toll roads or whatnot do have like hidden cameras and stuff. And for example here, that from memory, one of my mates who was driving down here, even though it's an 80 zone, I think he was traveling like 86 or 89, he got pinged and still got a speeding fine, which is crazy, but because we all know that there's a bit of a variance between speedos or what your car is reading. It's never going to be accurate. Might be dependent on wheels, quality of the sensors, etc., etc., etc. But you know, previously back in the day when I started driving, and this is now going back a couple of decades, there was a bit of a leeway, but in recent years and everything, it just looks as though that they've really just tightened it up to say, hey, even if you're like going over by a few kilometers, they will ping you. So yeah, they're very anti-speeding here with, you know, with little to no tolerance for it. Like, it just feels like sometimes if you murder someone, you'd probably get away with it, whereas speeding, they actually treat you like a criminal. It's crazy, but I feel like I'm ranting, so I will stop. Now, we have 1.6 kilometers until the exit. Are you going to move into the left lane and maybe overtake this ute or truck and boat convoy? Alright, here we are, we're getting off to turn off. Now on V13, it's actually missed this turn off a few times, so I'm interested to see if it will miss it or not. So let's see if this guide will let us through. Heading into the exit. Oh yeah, also they've got like these little light displays so that people don't get too bored in a tunnel for whatever reason. So here's a good test. So does it actually drop to 70? Yes, it does. There we go. There we go. That's pretty good. So the map here is a little bit off for whatever reason. I guess because there's no GPS things here or whatnot, but that's okay.
In 300 meters.
Oh,
right
I still got the yawns. Alright. Should be at our destination in 8 minutes. There we go, there's the toll,
right to take
the tag. I've also taken the M2 recently too, which has been interesting to see how the car handles different freeways and whatnot. That's probably the bigger freeways in the area, or the more busier freeways. And it's handled pretty well, because it does go into the Warringah Freeway, which feeds into the Harbour Bridge section. And if you don't know it, it's really difficult to navigate, because there's been roadworks there for many years. And I remember there was, roadworks there ever since I moved to Sydney. So FSD handles it most of the time. It did get nearly lost on one of the exits, but it handled it pretty well. Oh yes, also this is the intersection I was talking about earlier, where the one of the media outlets on newspaper rags have actually reported that this intersection is one of the worst ones. So it's North Rocks Roads and Pennant Hills Road. This too has been a construction zone for quite some time. So that's why I'm thinking, how are people having accidents around here? Because it's not crazy like Warringah or whatnot, but people still seem to have issues here. Anyway, what can you do? There's a launch edition Model Y. Oh, they changed the road here again. Okay, cool. So what I don't really understand there is that I think they've added extra lanes, or they've spread out the lanes, but it still drops down to a 2-lane on each side of the road. And people lose their shit around there, is my guess, and that's probably why it's a really bad intersection. Oh yeah, here's another section which has very bad traffic, and I mentioned it also before. Carlingford Court. The problem here is that there's multiple entries to go into Carlingford Court. There's also this entry here that goes into Marsden Road. The problem here is that you can see it here is that there's always at least 2 or 3 people that are trying to basically do a rat run like that Volkswagen to go into that lane, because they don't want to wait or queue up, which is silly. And probably and has also been voted as one of the worst intersections also in New South Wales or whatnot.
In 200 metres, turn left onto Evans Road.
Also for eagle-eyed Australians, these buildings here, a few months back there's some really bad winds and the crane nearly toppled over, so they had to actually evacuate the entire area for a few blocks because there was a risk that the crane will
turn left onto Evans Road.
collapse and cause significant debris. So they've actually had to evacuate the area for a few days, which was pretty concerning and pretty funny, but that seems as though that it's been resolved okay, and no cranes actually fell down. Okay, that's my tour guide vibe, but that's okay. All right, keep going. Follow this Model Y launch edition.
Turn left onto Alexander Street.
We're still in standard, so standard has been pretty good.
Now turn left onto Alexander Street.
It's probably the mode that's quick but not crazy lane changing everywhere, so standard is pretty decent. Okay, we're pulling up to Daisy's in a few minutes.
In 200 meters, turn
Yep.
right onto Yates Avenue.
Is there, like,
Then your destination will be on the left.
300 meters away according to the map. And we'll see if it finds a parking spot.
Now turn right onto Yates Avenue.
There are a few, so maybe we'll reverse in like that blue car.
Now your destination is on the left.
Is there any cars behind me? No, it's going to reverse in, so that's pretty cool. There's an orange BYD as usual. Okay, so we've now technically done end-to-end on FSD, and that's been a pretty long distance. So yeah, good couple, 150k, which is pretty good. What we'll do is that we'll probably end the video here. Just my thoughts and everything is that FSD, like I was saying, that I don't think it's ready for Australia to be unsupervised just yet, and that's what Tesla is saying. So if you are going to take up FSD, yes, I have had really good experiences with it, but also at the same time, just watch it because it does do some weird random things from time to time. So I was able to increase my longest streak to just under 50 kilometers, being exact 47.5 kilometers. And I think the issue that I have is, like I said, is keeping the streak going, is because wherever I go to places, I need to park up, but also at the same time it's a little bit difficult because the system is struggling to find parking or the place, and it'll just get lost in everything. So yeah, anyway, that wraps it up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.